Imagine walking into a room crowded with people. You don't know most of these people here, and it makes you kind of uncomfortable. You're not sure how to tell where you fit in. I don't know, should I go talk to them? But what if you could walk into that same room, and with a quick second to glance around, you have a pretty decent idea of the general mood of people, some of what they're feeling, and more importantly, where you fit in with the group. Wouldn't it be cool if that was possible? Well, it is. This video will give you a crash course into the lessons I've learned and the resources so that you can teach yourself these techniques at your own pace. The beauty of this is that it's not hard. Anyone can learn this, including you. Hi there friends, welcome back to the channel where we focus on self-improvement, productivity, and making the best possible versions of ourselves. Now, this topic is massive and I'm only brushing along the surface of it. And at the end of the video, if you want more content on this, just drop me a comment saying, hey, could you make more videos about this? Did you know that up to 90% of communication is nonverbal? Now, most of us will be able to pick up a small percentage of that without even realizing it, maybe around 20 to 30%. But that still leaves up to 60% that the average person is not tapping into. That's kind of like running a race with only one leg and wondering why you keep losing. The essential thing to understand about nonverbals is that they usually are a reaction to something or a change in behavior. Almost every stitch of information I'm going to give you in this video comes from this incredible book by Joe Navarro. He is an ex-FBI agent who uses body language to track down serial killers. And so the whole book is about all of the techniques that he uses and has used in his entire career. And he correlates them with interesting stories to kind of prove his point or to give examples of the specific things he's teaching you. So it's very well written and a fascinating book. So I'm gonna just kind of brush over the surface of this. I'll leave links down in the description. This video is kind of just to give you a taste. So hopefully you go read this and actually learn some of the techniques that it teaches. When you're learning how to read someone, there are two things that you're looking for. And it's very simple, but are they comfortable or uncomfortable? And in this book, he says that right there, comfortable or uncomfortable, is like the baseline of all of the entirety of nonverbals. And when you determine whether someone is uncomfortable, it's then your job to figure out what made that switch happen from comfortable to uncomfortable. A surefire way of doing this is telling someone that you read body language. It's kind of fun, but also kind of mean. I still remember one time that I told my friend that, and she instantly got very defensive and asked me what she was thinking. That's like what everybody asks you when you tell them that, like, oh, what am I thinking then? And so I told her that, she was slightly defensive and also kind of uncomfortable about the fact that I could read her body language. And then I also told her that she was fairly confident that I wouldn't be able to answer her question. Spot on. Now let's look at some very basic, but also some very powerful nonverbal signs that you can start to see right now. Pacifying is something that our brain does subconsciously a lot of times to calm ourselves down. The way our body does this is by rubbing or massaging parts of our body that have very high nerve endings. This could be places like fingertips or your neck or your forehead, pretty much anywhere on your face is a really good one. Your lips are a really, really big one, your tongue, things like that. This is probably the most common nonverbal sign that you'll see, which is why it's so powerful to get a hold on it and learn to recognize it. Go ahead and try some of these things. It's actually kind of cool. It's like rub your back of your neck, or like kind of rub your face or like your neck. Like a lot of times people will do this if they're very stressed or uncomfortable, or even biting your lip. A lot of people will do that. Running your tongue along the outside of your teeth like that. Here's an example of me pacifying in one of my previous videos. Now, when I'm talking to someone who is pacifying, that sends me a message that says, hey, she's not comfortable. What are you doing to make her uncomfortable? Are you standing too close? Is it something I said? Maybe she's trying to leave and I'm holding her up, and so on. The biggest thing is learning to notice right when that shift happens. So like, like she started pacifying right after I started my long war story of tracking down a deer I shot. Probably a good chance she's not much of a hunter. So let me steer the conversation back to something that's a little bit more comfortable. Joe spends quite a lot of time on pacifying in this book because there's a lot of ways that it presents itself. And seriously, anyone can learn to see these things. I started learning them when I was around 15 and try to read through the book at least once a year. Absolutely everyone should read this book. There's so much information here. Now, the second part of the key to this formula of reading people is situational awareness. Pacifying and the actions and the behaviors and identifying the different nonverbals is an entire infrastructure in and of itself. And pacifying is just one little sliver of that. But once you come out of that, learning situational awareness is extremely important when it comes to putting the puzzle together. The reason for this is because, like you've seen, there is no formula. It's not like if you do one pacifying gesture, it means that someone is lying or that someone doesn't like you. Situational awareness not only allows you to notice nonverbals, but is required if you're going to kind of fit those pieces together and figure out what that person's actually feeling and what's causing them to feel that way. So let's say that I march up to two people talking, shove my hand out and say, "Hi, my name is Austin." Shake their hand, they smile warmly, and then they go back to talking. Now, if you're kind of a social klutz, you might be like, "Oh wow, these people really like me. They shook my hand, they smiled at me. I'm just gonna hang around and listen to their conversation a little bit." But if you would have been putting body language with social awareness, you would have noticed that when they turned to shake your hand, they only turned their heads and just a tiny bit of their shoulders. If their hips and their feet stay facing each other and don't turn to welcome you into their group, you should know right away that they don't want you to join in. Their face was warm and friendly, but their body said something completely different. And we're gonna get into this a little bit later, but this is kind of the beauty of reading body language because it gives you such a leg up on people. Like, I'm sure you've had a scenario where you and your friend are, maybe you're having a personal conversation or you're talking about something that, it's not just out there for everyone to hear. And some Joe Blow, thrusts himself into your conversation and tries to join in. Now, most of the time, you're not going to turn and welcome him into your group and include him. You may say hi and whatever else, but it's kind of annoying when he just sticks around and doesn't get the cues that you want him to leave. And so then when you're that person going up to those people and you realize, oh, okay, these people don't want me to stay here, that's awesome, because now you're not imposing yourself on people. You're not invading their privacy or their conversation. And what's really, really, really cool is at first, it'll take conscious effort to pick these things out. But after enough time, your mind will begin doing it automatically. Like, you'll be in a group and you'll see someone and just know, and you won't even consciously think oh, they were, doing this, this, and this, that's why this. It's just boom, it just automatically clicks. It'll almost become second nature. One time I was in a room and my friend walks in, or was actually just walking through, and the first two steps that they took in the room, I was just hey, what's wrong? Because something was clearly wrong. I didn't even know why, but it was the way they were walking, the way they were carrying themselves, the way their head was, everything. I didn't even realize, I just knew. Another example of this is, I found this so fascinating. But I was watching an interview with Biden. I was just watching it, and then he said this phrase, and I was just he didn't believe what he just said. He doesn't believe that. And I was just wait a minute. How do I know that? So I backed it up, rewatched it a few times, and sure enough, whenever he would say this specific phrase, his body language would completely change. He would become extremely uncomfortable and tense while saying that. And then after the phrase was done, he'd relax, everything was totally normal again. Now, really quickly before I give you the last point, I just want to remind you guys that a lot of work and time goes into making these videos, usually around 10 to 15 hours. So I really just want to thank you for the way you individually support me, whether that's through a like or a comment, maybe a subscription. Anything you do goes a really, really long ways. So I really want to stop and just take a second to thank you guys for that and to recognize that support, because it really means a lot and it really goes a long ways. Now, the last point we're going to be covering today is responsibility. And when you read this book, which I'm really hoping you do, because there's so much awesome information in it, it's really, really critical that you play your part. Now, I tend to think about 90% or so of where you end up using this is in social situations, whether you're talking to someone and you use it in a way to make the other people around you most comfortable with you. Because if you're talking to someone and they're clearly uncomfortable, first thing you have to do is say, is this something I'm doing? Am I doing something to make them uncomfortable? And that's the majority of where you'll end up using it. Or you'll look at someone else talking and you realize that person is standing way too close and that's making them uncomfortable. So now when I go talk to that person, they need a little bit more of a social bubble. It's little small stuff, but it's one less thing that's gonna hinder you in a relationship or in a conversation or whatever. Most people freak out when I tell them that I read body language, and that's kind of understandable. I can see that, but it's not like I'm reading their thoughts or anything. If I do my job correctly and read what they give me, then I'll be able to make that conversation relaxed and comfortable for them, because I'll know where to go and where not to go. Well, most times. So that's where the responsibility comes in and where you have to do your part. And basically, I just wanted this to be kind of a scratching the surface of this and to kind of show you some of the incredible potential that you could gain from reading this book. Maybe you're not a reader, but I would highly encourage you to at least, like, if you read only one book, like this book is just incredible. The amount of instructions it gives you and social awareness and just observational skills is just incredible. Like, you will feel like Sherlock Holmes after you read this book. He's got really good illustrations and pictures showing you exactly what he means. It's very easy to understand. It's very easy reading. It's fascinating. Yeah, like some of the cases he solves with this stuff, so cool. So like I said, I'll link that down below. Please check it out. You will not regret it. I can guarantee you that. Now, there's a good chance that while you were watching this, you thought of someone else that would really enjoy this topic. If that's the case, I would highly encourage you to share this video with them. If they choose not to watch it or they don't want to be interested in it, that's totally fine. That's on them. It's not on you. But it's worse yet if they never even have the option to hear. So with that being said, as always, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next video.